This is Joe Bacino with the All American Legacy Podcast. This is a special release episode. This is episode 34, The Battle Against ISIS, Falcon Brigade in Iraq and Syria. Normally we release a new episode every other Tuesday, but we're releasing this on a Thursday, September 7th, because it is very timely. Our Falcon Brigade, 2nd Brigade Combat Team of the 82nd Airborne Division, along with their Iraqi partners, just completed a very successful offensive operation against ISIS in Tal Afar, Iraq. Earlier this year, Falcon Brigade made international headlines by pushing ISIS out of Mosul, and we wanted to rush this one out, as this is something that is breaking right now. So here is episode 34, The Battle Against ISIS, Falcon Brigade in Iraq and Syria. We'll release episode 35 on Tuesday, September 19th.
I'm not going to lie. The fight has been hard. It's a difficult fight.
All right, there you go.
I would say the Iraqi forces are winning, but ISIS is not done fighting. They came to fight. They're not running away in mass. We've got to be here, and someone has to be here fighting them.
This is the 82nd Airborne Division, fearless among fighting units.
From Fort Bragg, home of the airborne and the center of the military universe, this is the All-American Legacy Podcast, an inside look at the 100-year history of the 82nd.
They are all American, all the way.
Enemy!
What they do to these cities is they take these cities, and what used to be someone's home instantly becomes a fighting position. And what used to be a soccer field now becomes a killing field. And what used to be a school now becomes a weapons cache. And that's what ISIS brings. It brings destruction, it brings hopelessness, and it brings a sense of doom and that I think most people would have a hard time imagining.
Overseas, Iraqi forces backed by American advisors are close to recapturing the biggest city held by ISIS.
U.S.-backed Iraqi forces are making gains against the extremist group in Mosul.
As the battle for Mosul rages, IS has vowed to put up a fight.
My name's Colonel Pat Work. I'm the commander of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team of the 82nd Airborne Division. I command about 2,100 paratroopers that are serving here in Iraq, helping the government of Iraq and the Iraqi security forces defeat ISIS militarily. Warfare by, with, and through a partner is difficult. It's challenging. We have little control over what happens. We give our best military advice, but the Iraqis make the decisions. And no matter what they decide, we enable their operations. So it takes a degree of empathy and humility that most war fighting that we prepare for doesn't.
All right, if you're getting out here to fire, helmet, weapon.
We provide advice and assistance. The advice is about the thinking. It's about helping the Iraqis see themselves, helping them see the enemy, helping them understand the environment. It's helping them make decisions that are useful and how to apply their finite resources. So we give our best military advice. No matter what they decide, we enable them, and that gets into the assistance. The assistance is really about information sharing, intelligence sharing, and then lethal precision strikes. We either do that with coalition artillery assets that are precise or bombers and jets. And really it's the Iraqi security forces attack on the ground to take ground from ISIS, enabled by our precision fires, that really I think provides the overmatch that ISIS just can't withstand it.
Linky backlight, stand by! Woo!
They fought an enemy that was determined, had 3 years to prepare the defense of Mosul, and a city the size of Philadelphia, that's an extraordinary complex urban environment to do fighting in. In fact, it's probably the hardest urban combat that the world has seen since World War II, actually. We do it together, and so we certainly rely on them to take the ground and liberate the populations, because in the end, I've come to the conclusion that you can kill ISIS for days upon days upon days, and it might not even matter. What really matters is the ability to seize terrain, because the Islamic State You know, the way they see themselves, they got to be a country. They got to control terrain. They got to control populations. They got to be able to administer their deformed version of governance. And when they can't control populations and they can't control terrain, and the Iraqi security forces are just steadily taking it from them, it's you know, that is how you defeat ISIS. That's how this idea starts to die. The Iraqi forces have dominated ISIS in the Tal Afar area, and right now they're rooting out the remnants of ISIS in the surrounding hills. Since April of 2015, you've seen a victory in Tikrit, a victory in Ramadi in early 2016, a victory in Fallujah in the summer of 16. They got to the west side of the Tigris River up here in Nineveh province last summer in August of 16. They won in Mosul, 9-month struggle, and they came out the other end victorious, and they're on the cusp of finishing off ISIS in the Tal Afar area as well. It's pretty extraordinary. And the Iraqi security forces have made tremendous sacrifice, and they've fought very stubbornly for a hell of a long time to get to this point where they've really finished off this crumbling caliphate up in northern Iraq. We're proud of our small role in this. We're going to continue to help them attack until we get on an aircraft and depart here. But, you know, the 82nd Airborne Division's been kicking ass for 100 years now. And this fight's going to continue here in Iraq, and we're going to continue to help the Iraqi security forces attack.
Right. Go high. There you go. Down to the right. There you go.
The roles that the 82nd soldiers are filling, they run the gamut. From guys that are pulling security on forward operating bases to guys that are living in blown out houses in the middle of Mosul, you know, within a few hundred meters of the forward line of troops.
First. Picture's clear. Send home.
My name is Master Sergeant Travis Cook, and I've been in Iraq for 7 months this deployment. So the first time I came over here during OIF-2, right after the invasion, it was right about the time Muqtada Sadr was getting big. It felt like World War III. It was violence everywhere. I think the Iraqis could do this in an Iraqi way without us. They have suffered north of 7,000 casualties just in the fight around Mosul. Without us, they would accomplish it, but they would accomplish it at even greater cost to themselves. The thing that the 82nd brings to the fight is the intelligence, the logistics, the precision fires, so that the Iraqis can accomplish their Iraqi plan without having to suffer those massive casualties that would otherwise be the case. Each time I've come over here with the 82nd with a new soldier who's never been shot at before, the way I know that he's being shot at is he starts firing back. Then I have to go chase him down and figure out why he's firing back. I think those soldiers are able to take that mental leap to immediately engage the enemy because no matter how junior a paratrooper is, at least 5 times, he's stood in the door of an aircraft and known that the next thing he does can take his life. And he chooses to do it. So that when he's in combat, that's not his first experience with his own mortality. He's dealt with that before. And it's a bridge he doesn't have to cross at that most crucial time. That persona that we think of in the Greatest Generation as they fought World War II, that's still alive and well in all these soldiers. And you can see it day to day. I put 2 of my sons into the infantry. Both of them have deployed in combat. My middle son is still in. He's a member of the 1st Infantry Division. He'll be going to airborne school in November. I was not always airborne. I started out with the Berlin Brigade. I had a friend of mine that was re-enlisting and wanted to go to Fort Bragg, and he was just going to go to airborne school because. So I kind of followed him. And one day, walking in front of the airborne PX on payday activities, I caught a reflection of myself wearing the shiny boots and the corporal rank and a red beret. I was like, oh my God, I'm a leader of paratroopers. And that's kept me jumping out of planes ever since. I'm coming on 100 jumps, and I still see myself as that corporal.
It's kind of funny, we were joking around yesterday, talking about how we're almost going home, and we were almost like sad about it, I guess, just because you take ownership of what you're doing and you're proud of it, and it's weird to suddenly not be doing that every day for 9 months.
All right, there you go. All right, go through the door. Let's go, 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 go.
My name is Danielle Gargiulo. I'm a first lieutenant, and I am stationed in Q West, Iraq. I'm the battalion S1, so I'm the primary staff officer responsible for human resources in my battalion. So that includes strength management, pay and financial type actions, personnel actions, awards, promotions, evaluation, reports, casualty support, that sort of thing.
Everybody move them, let's go, let's go, move them, move them, move them, move them, let's go.
Let's go, come on.
Being in the Army in general has always been sort of challenging in a way for me. I mean, from the get-go, you know, I have a fear of heights, and I decided to go to airborne school and jump out of airplanes. But I think the longer you're in the Army, the more you realize how much there is to learn and how much you don't know yet. So this is my first deployment. So the plane ride over, I slept as much as possible. That to me probably was the most stressful part. Just the anticipation and kind of the anxiety of what am I about to do for 9 months. That's a really long time. But my brother is in the same brigade as me. He found out he was deploying a couple months later, so we're both in Iraq at the same time, and that was kind of comforting.
Almost there, almost there, almost there. Almost done, almost done.
Come on, come on, come on. Push it.
My brother is an infantry platoon leader. He's in Baghdad. Out here, I've had the opportunity to see him once, which was great. My battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Elizabeth Curtis, allowed me to take a route back from a battlefield circulation to stop by in Baghdad and see him for a couple days, and it was really great just to kind of reset and see, you know, family. Both my parents, all 4 of my paternal uncles, both my grandfathers have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force. My dad's a retired medical service officer, retired as a colonel, and my mom, she was a transportation officer. It was definitely something that, like, you know, I grew up looking up to my parents and being an Army brat until I was like 17, so I knew the culture and I loved growing up like that, so it was definitely something that I think I was kind of led to do. One of our battle captains came in and said that there was a 9-line being called over, like a request for medical evacuation was being called up. And the first thing, obviously, that I thought of was I got to get in touch with my brother and make sure he's okay.
Lieutenant Weston Lee died while on patrol in Mosul, Iraq. The body of the 25-year-old paratrooper was set to arrive home this morning.
Weston Lee, he was a lieutenant in my brother's battalion. And I didn't know him well, but everyone kind of knew him. He was that kind of guy. One of my really good friends out here was one of his best friends from college. So it was horrible. We've lost 3 of our, brothers in arms out here. So that's always going to be something that just doesn't ever leave you, you know.
Let's go.
We deployed a little bit later than everybody else.
F9 first.
My name is First Sergeant Eric Salo. I am a Rifle Company First Sergeant for Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne. We are living with the federal police. We are living with and working with, side by side, the Iraqi Army. We would help them go through the process of ensuring that their targeting was working correctly and supporting them with indirect fires and whatever assets that they would need. Also, we would actually, one of the things that we did with the federal police is we helped set up their first ever sniper training school. The friendships that we have, that was the biggest shock to me. Our biggest surprise was just the friendships that we've actually built with the government forces here in Iraq. We have apps that we can text people over data-wise, and there's still people that we worked with 4 months ago, Iraqis, that we may never see again. But we still are continuing to text them, how is your family? How are you doing? What is going on in your city? Is everything okay? You know, and just casual conversation. We've the friendships that we've made, and they're real friendships.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Yes.
You know, we were at the tip of the spear in World War I. You know, we were at the tip of the spear in World War II, and we are again at the tip of the spear here now. You know, almost 100 years later from when my battalion and this division first started to wage war in World War I. It's really a cool feeling to actually see it, what it must feel like to be a paratrooper in World War II. You know, having to go through France and liberation of Paris, and it's close to that. You know, it's something that the people here are very happy to see us. They're very, the kids are waving, the people are waving. The federal police and the Iraqi army are always very happy to see us. They're very gracious hosts. It's just kind of you actually can feel the pulse of the country and feel the gratitude that they have. And it's a remarkable feeling, and it's absolutely humbling.